Hey everyone, let's dive right into this explainer and definitively decode the consolidated accounts of the nation. I know you've got a big exam coming up, so my absolute main goal today is to make sure you are 100% prepared. We're going to hit all the major points so you get that full, comprehensive understanding you need to completely ace this test. Let's get to it. So, before we get into the weeds, let's just ask a fundamental question. How exactly does a whole nation balance its checkbook when the numbers literally do not match? Think about it for a second. It's kind of like comparing your personal checkbook to a credit card statement. Different national institutions record things at different times using totally different methods. That means the books don't just naturally balance out of thin air. They require some major manual adjustments. And that is exactly what we're going to master today. All right, here's our game plan. First, quick consolidated accounts overview. Second, discrepancy realities, why those numbers don't match. Third, NES statement mapping. Fourth, account 6 versus the balance of payments. Fifth, trade and transfers categorization. And finally, external categories, the definitive sheet. Okay, section 1, the consolidated accounts overview. Let's lay down the foundational architecture of the macroeconomy. For your exam, it is absolutely crucial to remember that these 4 key accounts make up the system compiling the entire macroeconomic picture of the country. You've got account 1, dealing with gross domestic product and expenditure. Then account 3, for national disposable income and its appropriation. Moving on, account 5 is your capital finance account. And finally, account 6 covers external transactions. Get these 4 locked into your brain because everything else we talk about builds straight off this foundation. Moving right along to section 2, discrepancy realities, or why numbers don't match. Now, this is where it gets messy and honestly kind of fascinating. Because we are relying on independent estimates, the accounts will not naturally balance. And here is the real kicker for your test. No attempt is made to force them to balance. Because different independent estimates are used to construct these national accounts, you're going to see differences. These pop up as statistical discrepancies or errors and omissions instead of perfectly matched columns. It's actually a feature of the system, not a bug. So, how do we actually handle this mathematically? Well, if you get a question asking how to calculate the discrepancy in account 1, this 4-step formula is your exact answer. First, you grab the statistical discrepancy from account 3. You add the errors and omissions from account 5. Then, you add the net adjustments made for exports and imports from account 6. Add those 3 pieces together, and boom, that equals the total discrepancy in account 1. Definitely jot that formula down. It is highly testable. All right, section 3. NAS statement mapping, connecting the data. Let's see how these massive consolidated accounts actually map out to other national account statistics, or NAS statements. Looking at the actual source text here from Appendix 4.1, I know it's a dense table, but it's a fantastic visual mnemonic device. Just seeing it reinforces the concept that literally every item in the consolidated accounts has a direct correspondence somewhere else in the NAS statements. You don't need to memorize the entire page, but you absolutely must understand that these items are intricately, permanently linked. To make that dense data a bit easier to digest, we've pulled out a few key mappings. Take a look at the bottom row. See how saving, which is items 3.3 and 5.5, bridges exactly over to item 6 in statement 18? This perfectly illustrates how data flows from the high-level macro consolidated accounts straight into the more granular statements. Grasping this logic is super important for your full comprehension. Next up, section 4, account 6 versus BOP, the core conflict. Okay, pay close attention because we are conquering a real heavy hitter exam topic right now, the relationship between account 6 and the balance of payment statistics. Here is the absolute key difference you have to memorize. The Reserve Bank of India, or RBI, compiles the balance of payments based on ownership, meaning the legal title of the goods and services. But on the flip side, the DGCINS compiles foreign trade statistics based purely on the physical movement of merchandise across boundaries. Legal ownership versus physical movement. That is the core conflict. So, how do we solve that conflict? Well, physical goods usually cross a border way before the legal paperwork of ownership is finalized, right? We need a bridge. So, to keep the overall balance of payments on current account undisturbed, account 6 adds a very specific entry. It's called the adjustment of merchandise imports and exports for change of ownership basis. This single adjustment entry is the essential bridge between the RBI data and the DGCIS data. It keeps the whole thing mathematically sound. That brings us to Section 5, Trade and Transfers, Categorization Rules. The crucial point here is understanding how specific types of trade and transfers get categorized under these two different sets of rules. Do not let the test trick you on this. Look at how transfer payments are handled. The balance of payments, it basically just lumps all transfers into the current account, merely labeling them as private or official. But Account 6 is way stricter. It classifies official government transfers from the BOP as capital transfers and private transfers as current transfers. So the BOP doesn't use the current versus capital criteria for transfers, but Account 6 absolutely does. Mark that down for sure. Plus, while the BOP might just show a single rolled-up net entry for assets and liabilities, Account 6 actually breaks its capital transactions down into 3 distinct buckets: net purchase of intangible assets, net acquisition of foreign financial assets, and net incurrence of foreign liabilities. It's a subtle distinction, but it shows just how granular Account 6 gets compared to the BOP. And finally, Section 6, External Categories, the definitive sheet. All right, I want you to literally take a mental snapshot of Table 4.1 right here. This is your definitive cheat sheet. It comprehensively links the external transactions account categories directly over to the BOP categories. It is literally the roadmap for how these two massive accounting frameworks talk to each other. Let's zoom in and break down a couple of the most important rows to be sure you've got it. Here, we've cleanly isolated the current account transactions from that bigger table. Check out item 5 down at the bottom. It shows perfectly how Account 6 items, specifically other current transfers, map flawlessly to transfer private in the balance of payments. Just like we discussed a minute ago, those private transfers are explicitly treated as current. And moving over to the capital account section, you can clearly see those 3 distinct components that Account 6 is tracking: net incurrence of foreign liabilities, surplus of the nation on current account, and capital transfers from the rest of the world. And notice how the table clearly points out that these are all simply bundled under the broader capital account heading over in the BOP categories. To wrap this whole explainer up, I want to leave you with one final question to test your gut check before test day. If physical goods cross the border, but legal ownership hasn't actually changed yet, which account adjusts? Think back to that core conflict between the RBI and DGCIN as we covered earlier. If you can clearly articulate exactly why Account 6 adds that specific ownership adjustment entry, you have the key to absolutely crushing this topic on your exam. Keep reviewing these concepts, trust the structure we've built here today, and you're going to do amazing. Happy studying!